Alright, my name's Gabe Downey. I'm the coach here at Indian Hills Country Club, and I want to thank you all for taking interest in diving. This video is meant to just give you a little introductory lesson to diving. For many of you, this might be a new experience. We just want to give you a little idea of how diving is scored, what we're looking for, and just the general code and behavior that we try to follow here. So please sit back and thank you for taking an interest here. Basically, in the Country Club League, we're going to have 5 judges at every single meet. We're going to have our weekly meets and then our championship meet, and in each one we're going to have 5 judges. And the way it's scored in diving is that we take those 5 scores and we take out the highest and the lowest scores. So if you've got a dive that gets a 4, a 4.5, a 5, a 5.5, and a 6, what we're going to do is we're going to take out that 4, we're going to take out that 6, we're going to put the 4.5, the 5, and the 5.5 together, total it up, we get 15 points, and then that's our net score. And then we take the degree of difficulty. Each dive has an assigned degree of difficulty based on how hard it is. A front jump is our easiest dive, it gets 1.0. So we'd multiply that 15 by 1.0, we're going to put 15 points for the dive. Some of the hardest dives, what you might see this summer, is reverse 2.5. That's a 3.0 DD. That's about as high as we're going to get. And so we'd take that 15, we'd multiply it by 3.0, we get 45 points for the dive. And so anything in between. And every single dive has a relative degree of difficulty based on how hard that dive is. And so you get a little idea, and what happens then is with that 15 points from that front jump, that's going to go to the next dive then. We're going to take on our back jump. Say Jimmy gets all 6s on a back jump. We're still going to take out the highest and lowest score. So we've got all 6s, we're going to take out 1 6, we're going to take out the other 6, add up those middle 18 points, and then multiply it by, on our back jump, again 1.0, so we get 18 points. And so the 15 points from the previous dive, and the 18 points from our back jump, get added up and we've got 33 points. And we put that all together throughout Jimmy's 3, 4, 5, 6 dives, however many, and that's our score for the contest. So basically, when it comes down to judging, though, because we've got that degree of difficulty that's going to multiply and going to tell us how hard the dive is, the judges are not going to score based upon how hard the dive is. Unlike you might see in gymnastics or you might see in ice skating, diving is judged solely upon that dive, not upon the difficulty of that dive. We've got another element, that degree of difficulty, which takes care of that. But what you're also going to see is we have 5 different age groups, and in that, of course, we separate the boys and the girls, but we've got our 8 and under age group, we've got our 10 and under, our 12 and under, our 14 and under, and our senior age group. And each age group has different required dives. There's a specific dive or specific set of dives that those kids have to do each week, and so you're going to see that in the weekly meets. But also, each age group has a required number of dives. So the 8 and unders are going to do 3 dives each time, and of those 3 dives, up to 2 of them can be jumps. Now on our jumps, there's a max score of 5. So even if it's done perfectly, if it would be a 10 dive, they're still going to receive a 5 on it. Or conversely, if the dive was done well and scores a 5, typically that's still the score it's going to get. It's not a relative score, it's just a cap on that. But the 8 and unders can do up to 2 jumps, and then we're going to have 1 other dive in there. The 10 and unders, though, and up aren't allowed to do jumps any longer, except for in our B meets. But in the A age groups, or in the A events, there's no jumps from 10 and under on up. So in 10 and under, you're going to see 4 dives. Our 12 and unders are going to do 5 dives. 14 unders will do 6 dives. And our seniors will also do 6 dives. And again, of those, the first dive each time will be that required dive of the week. Now, at each of our meets also, we're going to have a head referee. This is someone hired by the league to help watch over, to help kind of guide the meet. And the referee is going to be in charge of calling very specific things. If a dive is incomplete or a failed dive, it's the same idea, just different terminology. Basically, where on a front dive, for instance, the diver doesn't make it to their head. They land on their feet first. That's going to be a failed dive or an incomplete dive. The referee is going to make that decision, though, and that dive won't receive any score. If the diver goes in with their arms above their shoulders on a feet first dive, it's going to receive a max 2. If they go in with their arms down on a head first dive, it's going to receive a max 2. You've got to have your arms up on head first dives, you've got to have your arms down on feet first dives. That's something the referee is going to call. Another thing is a balk. Now on a balk, what you're going to see is whether the diver takes 1 step and stops, or goes all the way to the end of the board, does the hurdle, and then stops. If they stop once they've begun, that's a balk. Also on a back takeoff, if they get started and they're starting to go and they stop, that's going to be a balk. And so what's going to happen on that? The judges and the referee are all going to score it the same way, but the referee is going to call it a balk, and at the scoring table, they're going to take off 2 points from each score. So if you would have 5, 5, 5, 5, 4.5, the scores are going to be 3, 3, 3, 3, 2.5. But that will be done outside of the judges. The referee will also call if a diver doesn't come out of the position. If they're in a tuck dive, where they're grabbing their legs, they're staying like this, and then make no effort to come out of that dive before they hit the water, and they stay in that tuck, or if they're doing a pike, and they stay in that pike right up until they hit the water, that's going to be max 2. Again, the referee is going to make that decision, and all of the judges will score accordingly. The final thing is if a dive is done out of position. If it's supposed to be a tuck dive and they're clearly in a pike, or it's manifestly more pike than it is tuck, then that's going to be an out of position dive. The referee will call that. Again, that's max 2. But there are a few things that the individual judges will be looking for that aren't referee decisions. These are just personal preference and things that the judges will notice that they will be taking off for. And these are some of the more commonly seen things. The first thing that you might note is a crow hop. That's where in a back takeoff, the diver takes a little jump before they do their back jump. Okay, what you want to make sure is that the feet stay still. You only get one jump off the diving board. So if they take an extra little jump, what the judges are going to do is take off between a half point to 2 or possibly more points based upon the severity of that crow hop. Another thing you might see is a cowboy tuck, or even a cowboy pike, which we call a split pike, where the diver's knees and feet aren't together. This would be a cowboy tuck. Even if their feet are together in the knees part, that's still considered a cowboy. Or again, in a pike, if their feet are apart. What you want to make sure is that the legs are together, knees are in, feet are together. And again, that's something where the judges will take off a half point, 1 point if it's severe, maybe up to 2 points on that. Another thing you might see is over oscillation. That's where on a back press, on a back takeoff, with their arms down here, regardless, if they're sitting there just rocking the diving board over and over and over again, more than 4, technically by the rules, is considered over oscillation. Most judges will give you a little more leeway than that, but the rule states 4, and so the judges will take off, again, between a half point up to about 2 points, depending on the severity. If it's 23 oscillations, it's probably going to take off 2 points. If they do 7 or 8, you might take off a half point on that. So it's a relative thing there. And then a break in position, which is different than out of position. Out of position, as I stated, is if I'm supposed to be doing a pike dive and my knees are here, I'm more in a tuck than I'm in a pike, and that's a referee's call. But if I'm supposed to be in a pike position and my knees are here, then that's going to be a break in position. I'm more in a pike still, but I've got a little flaw in that, and that's something where, again, the judge's discretion, they're going to take off a half point. If my knees are here, I might take off 2 points, and so on and so forth. And so hopefully that explains a little bit of what we're looking for in our judging. And also, if you have more interest, and if you're interested in judging, you might take a look at our judging video as well. But a note to coaches and parents also, we want to make sure that we keep these meets as good and smooth and good an experience for the kids as we can. So we want to make sure that we only have the immediate diver behind the board. We don't want coaches all around the diving boards there. We don't want parents everywhere there. Diving's something where we've got to have concentration. The kids have to be able to focus. It's potentially a dangerous thing if it's not done properly. And so we want to make sure that we maintain safety, we maintain focus, and so we keep everyone back, other than the immediate diver that's going next, away from the diving board area. And that includes, as we're getting ready, we want to allow the kids to focus and do their own thing. As well, we want to make sure that we maintain relative quiet while the dive is being announced and while the dive is being performed. We don't want a lot of kids screaming. We don't want to hear, over excessive clapping. We want to support the kids, but we don't want it to become distracting, especially while the dive is being announced as well. The judges have to be able to hear what dive is coming, and so they need to be able to listen to know that. So please try to be relatively quiet during the contest. And one suggestion for parents, as you watch this, especially if you're new to diving here and you're not used to it, but you're thinking, well, I think I could give that a try and I think I could judge a little bit. One thing you can do is sit back and while the contest is going on, as you see a dive, think, I'd give that about a 4.5. And as the scores come up, see where you fall in. If it got 5s or 4.5s, then you're right there in line. And do that a few times to get the idea and get a little repetition and a little bit of practice. And especially if you find that generally you're pretty well within that range, then hopefully you might consider judging a little bit for us and helping us out with that aspect as well. And I think that kind of concludes our introduction to diving. Again, thank you very much, and we look forward to a great season.